it's a beginning of another composition. But once in a while, and I'm provided sometimes with a plethora of great soloists, and once in a while they all feel like maybe playing on one tune, or maybe there's a tune that features 5 saxophones. And then you kind of figure out how it works, because some guys, they want to create their composition kind of like tailgating the solo that just happened, so they will not come and after the other solo will kind of fade away. Maybe one solo will stay here and the other guy just gets up and goes like, whee! Right there, and that's a different, that's a different arch, that's a different shape of his composition. So we have to, understand that we can bring it down. So if that happens, so it's always, the most important thing is listening, and we were just talking about it the other day. I understood it after a while of staying in New York, and as Lenart said, for a European, it's really hard because, generally speaking, we are linking the culture of rhythm, the culture of treating time, in the same way as it is ever present in almost every shape and form of American music and American folklore. So I have to say that I was let know early on about the importance of time, and I forgot where I was going with that.
You're talking about time and how important rhythm is.
And what I was talking before that, it's too complicated of a thought.
Okay, you lost me.
I lost myself, but thinking, I'm always like listening. I'm always, I was, I guess maybe that's where I was going. I was let know that it's not just the time and how you play it, and it's not just the fact that every instrument is a drum, basically, and bass is a drum too. But also that you have to listen. If you do not develop this ability to hear what's going around you, of course, how you decide to react to it, that eventually makes it who you are, what your style is.
Yeah, can I interject?
Sure.
Rhythm, we think about rhythm. When we talk about genres, for most drummers, we'll hear the genre pretty much is described by the rhythm, right? If we say Latin music, right away you think that's either a samba, right? That's Latin, and we still use those words. We're thinking that when I say funk, right away we're thinking more syncopation. So I'm saying this to say that the way we describe genres really is with rhythm. When we say jazz, we got a jazz beat, we got a jazz swing beat, right? So that's what comes to mind. So I think maybe just to add, I guess, where you're going is that with rhythm, it kind of prescribes a certain feeling that you kind of be aware of. The same way, I guess Lenart was alluding to when it comes to harmony in the West, if you start playing certain harmonies, it's going to prescribe a certain feeling, or hopefully you get the feeling that they want you to hear from it. It's the same thing with rhythm. So, so just being aware of the rhythm and the placement of rhythm. And I actually wanted to talk about that too, maybe a little later after we play some more.
Well, when I was studying with Reggie in the Coltrane ensemble at the school, and we played just Coltrane music, and there was a horn player who always wanted to bring down the rhythm section after the soloist, and Reggie would just like stop, no kneeling buses in the Coltrane band.
No kneeling buses.
Yeah, the kneeling buses in New York. You have these buses, and when they come to the station, they start beep, 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 and the front kneels down so that the old lady can.
Or the wheelchair can go.
Yeah, so he said no kneeling buses in the Coltrane music, because especially the quartet music, if you listen to it, and when the McCoy has like a really, really long solo, it goes to the peak point, and the Coltrane just jumps on it and takes it to stratosphere. So they weren't doing it like that. But when we played also with Francis, actually was a good example. He's from Africa, and they have these movements, right? A bunch of drums, and they start building it up, and the main thing is, when are we gonna bring it down? And they bring it down like immediately, like wow! And when we started playing, we played with a bunch of different drummers, including Gene actually. And he was like after the gig, he said, "Yeah, Gene is really listening because those bring downs, he's digging. I can play with this guy." Whenever he had a drum that would never bring it down during the movement, especially there was a song called African Lady. It's like dum 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 dum, and that's all there is to the song. It lasts for 20 years. So if you want something to happen in this song, something has to happen, otherwise people are going to die listening to it. And it's always this game, building it up, boom, bringing it down, building it up, and bringing it down. So it really depends on the style of music you're playing. But in general, like when you play standards, especially on the sessions, you get to that climax and everybody's rolling, you need a little bit of a breath after that, right? So you bring it down just to give another soloist a chance. Usually in the bands, these things don't happen that obvious because people play together a lot, so they know what they want. When you're in the jam session, you basically usually do that. But as soon as you hear a guy coming from like 2 meters above everybody, you just go with it. That's the whole art of the rhythm section. From the soloist standpoint, I don't know what the rhythm section is about that.
No, I think you hit it. I mean, like with playing with Francis, the acting thing, they have this. That's their way of kind of dealing with the tension and release thing. I was saying, it's kind of building it, boom, then it starts. Well, I say, cooking. It's simmering. It's just, it's warm. It's not hot yet. You take it back to hot. When it gets too hot, boom, And kind of a little bit of what you're talking about, because it's kind of the same thing where there's this composition inside the solos. So you have to listen. I mean, the thing with the African thing, it's on an ensemble level where everybody's kind of taking it up and then it drops down. But with more of in a kind of jazz setting, generally speaking, the soloist is kind of making his composition on the spot, and in the rhythm section we have to complement what he's doing and help and participate in constructing this coherent kind of piece of music that's being made on the spot. So yeah, it takes big ears. You have to. That's one of the things I used to hear from my jazz band teacher in high school. Big ears. He used to be like this. Big ears to listen. Even with guys playing free jazz. There's some rules to that too. It's because otherwise, if there's no rules, it's not really free, right? This is what Miles is saying. You can't be free unless you get locked up somewhere. Because to truly be free is to know how to free yourself. So like with Steve Coleman, like this one beat I was playing, it's in 7, right? It's 7. It's in 7/4, right? In 7/4. 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But one of the ways I figured out how to play around that beat is to slice it in half, right? So I'll slice it in half on the hi-hat. So 3, 4. another way to do that one thing I found for guys who listen to the rhythm coming from the jazz band, coming from everyone, I should say, in the ensemble. There's a certain way to listen to rhythm. Like you can listen to the rhythm, you have to listen to it relative to something. So even if you play like somebody plays like a we'll say 1-4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we play like a quarter note triplet, you know. And I stagger that, so I'm trying to stagger it, but do that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to demonstrate this. There's a certain way of still hearing rhythm relative to something, so that you don't get off time, basically, you know. And so if you hear what everyone's playing, the rhythm of what everyone's playing relative to a pulse, even if it's seemingly out of time, you can say, well, that was kind of like an 8-note triplet, but just a little stagger or something. You know, it still helps to hear everything relative to something. So going back to this thing in 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? I'm not gonna have that. For guys who hear and listen to hear rhythm like that, a lot of times they don't, you know, like the rhythm banged out in their head all the time. Kind of like the way certain soloists don't like the harmony kind of just coming at them all the time, you know what I'm saying? Because then it kind of dictates kind of how they have to play. So if they have this rhythm coming at them all the time, they don't feel they can get free. So one of the things we have kind of developed is having this rhythm in my head, you know, so if so I don't have to do this. Muscle that you can develop to just where you don't have to, when you're playing, I mean, it's something you kind of have to do it to get it. You practice playing, singing things in your head and playing around that, you know. And like the same thing, like for instance, like we play some of these songs, and Lenart solo, and he's got certain part of the tune where he cues, and then the chord changes start going by. If he has a piano player just playing notes, then he can't stretch the harmony with how he solos, or maybe not play the harmony if he doesn't want to. You know, I mean, he could if the piano's playing, but it might not. It might wind up in a different place, especially if the piano player starts changing the harmony, and he doesn't know where it is. You know, you guys might not wind up in the same spot, or it may not sound as good. It depends on the players, really. I should put it that way. But not having that harmony there, maybe you can talk about that. Not having that harmony there. What is that? Do you find that to be free?
Yeah. So actually, Sonny Rollins talks about that back in the 60s when he did a bunch of recordings with just the trio. I think Amy Grimes was in the trio. And he talked about, you know, I have a lot of fine piano players, and they all sound great, but just playing in the trio is much more free to me. I can move wherever I want. And even now, he doesn't have a piano in the band, he has a guitar. And the reason, he says, because the guitar is limited, they can only cover the certain part of the color. The piano can cover everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it kind of locks you in. Sometimes it can also help you. It depends what kind of player you have behind. And sometimes you are forced to play a certain way. This happens on sessions many times. When you play rhythm changes and the first chord that the piano player plays is this. And it's like, where's the top? You know, I want to go, and immediately you play like something like, I don't know, some weird stuff, and you go all different places. And then you're forced to bite that bullet and play out immediately, right? Now, this kind of piano players are not really my favorite, because they force you to do certain things. When you comp a guy, let's go, piano is a part of the rhythm section. You really have to comp the guy. Don't force him to play things. At the same time, because you can comp in a way, he'll hear you if he's that kind of a player. He'll hear you everything what you play. The right harmony, wrong harmony, rhythmic figures, but you don't have to, punch him with all of your harmonies. Because then he's forced to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not soloing anymore. Now I'm fighting with you now. It's that kind of thing. So being accompanying people still has to be accompanying, not a place to drive. You follow the soloist at that time. And if that's the bass player, that's the bass player. So follow the bass player. Now he'll tell you after the first gig, hey man, just keep the regular changes, because I want it to sound really out when I go out. And that's fine, you can do that. Because sometimes when everybody goes out and nobody knows where it's in, that can be a little bit of a funny thing too, unless they really want that. I like the players to follow me if I go somewhere, but it's really just the instinct. Sometimes you have a bass player that just does the right thing, and one is sitting right there. It's always because he has the picture of the whole band, not just himself playing the bass. He does things what is needed. And that's the main thing that you have to have in mind when you're playing with like a soloist. It's like, what is needed to make this sound perfect? What can I do with my sounds to make this, to sound this really well? Picture as a whole, not just yourself. Let me see. And sometimes you have drummers that will do similar things. Well, sometimes you need that. I needed that when I came to New York. The first gig was with Harper. I knew Chico Freeman, and he invited me to the gig. And I was soloing the second soloist. And I started playing like very insecurely. It was kind of like blah, 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 something. And all of a sudden from the rhythm section, boom, 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 bam! And I was like, oh, I better start playing that way. So those kind of things were needed. But if you have a drummer that you start a solo and he starts soloing with you, taking away the stuff from you, that's a similar thing. You accompany him. You don't direct him where he needs to go. That's another thing that many rhythm section players kind of don't get. It's either an ego problem, whatever it is, but it's not very helpful to a player. So having a trio without a piano, but still, a bass that can play chords and stuff, you basically have everything you need as a soloist. And the music is much more open. I mean, the first time we had a rehearsal with these songs, and some of them we played with the big band, the sound was so different. I said, oh, should we really play this? Because I'm missing the sound, I'm used to these 5 trumpets blowing into my ears every day, and now we come to the trio and we play the same song. It's like, that's not the same soup we're eating here. But then you find a different sound, and all of a sudden it's the same tune, but it has a completely different character to it because of the trio.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe you could say something worse, but this is an interesting thing, right? Making the transition from playing songs in a big band setting where there's many different parts happening, and so the space is being filled